we are clearly here not as an audience, because if you don't take away from this that we cannot, as we usually do, leave this challenge to the state to solve, if you don't take away that all of us are involved in this, all of us have to participate, and all of us have to come up with creative, constructive solutions to the problem, then we have wasted the food that you ate. So in that light, in that vein, I want to invite the members of the panel to come up on the podium and receive your constructive input, particularly Dr. Grace McLean, who we all know, Acting Permanent Secretary in the Ministry of Education, Youth and Information, Professor Michael Taylor, Dean of the Faculty of Science and Technology of the University of the West Indies, Dr. Asburn Pinnock, President of the Mico University College, and once again, His Excellency, Mr. Naik, the India High Commissioner. Now, in the interests of democracy, we will entertain all of your constructive questions. In the interest of discipline, we will limit your questions to 1 minute, and we will try and ask the panelists to be guided in their responses, that everybody here has things to do today, and keep to perhaps a 2-minute response. We will not entertain questions that are statements or philosophies or truisms. Madam Master of Ceremonies is there. There's a mic. So we can start. Please, remember, all of us are in this. Please speak freely. Pose your questions. Let's go with it. First question. Anybody?
Good morning.
Hendrickson. Yes, can you identify yourself, please, even though we know who you are?
I'm your friend.
And we wouldn't mind if you stood up.
It's so funny that I think it was Marlon said 1 and 1 is 2. I just heard that somewhere. And well, the Aka is in the room, and we said 1 and 1 was 2 a long time ago. And we didn't understand. I didn't understand the importance of it. We're talking about early childhood. So what I really need to do, because I support this 100%. If I don't support 100%, Glenn is going to support it for me anyway. That's where the democracy ends in our friendship. And he just kind of says, well, you're paying so much. What I want to know is, where do you ideally start? At what stage should these children going into a real STEM center start? And how many, in other words, I'm trying to go on a timeline going backwards. And as much Dr. Grace as we'll build something, because we will build Mico. I promise you, it'll get done. We will get that started. But for best practice, how far back do we really have to go, Your Excellency, to start these kids on the right path? Because Mico will start here, but obviously 5 years from now, you want a whole different level.
Who wants to take that?
Well, as we stated earlier in the presentation, the importance of teachers in the process. So we must start with empowering the teachers. And we start with the Mico, and then we train the trainers, and then we partner with the other colleges across the island, which is about 8 colleges across the island, strategically located: Eastern Jamaica, Portland, Central Mandeville Church, St. Elizabeth, Bethlehem, Sam Sharp, Montego Bay, and there are several colleges in Kingston around the Mico. And therefore, we train all levels of teachers. You are trained to teach primary, we train you. Early childhood, we train you. And then we start to go out in the schools to teach and train the teachers of the schools, which then in turn will start from the early childhood level. to create the culture that STEM is. STEM is really a culture, a way of doing things. It's not about subject areas, physics, chemistry, math. Those come into play. But STEM is a culture, the way we do things. And therefore, if we start at the early childhood level, and teachers are the best conveners of culture, and we start at the early childhood level and we work our way all up to the secondary level.
So if I may just add to that response, Butch, the matter of early childhood has to be reorganized in terms of the approaches that are used for assisting our babies to develop their manipulative skills and the little activities that they do. And so we now have to retrofit and work with Jamaica 21 to have things like pseudocodes and little video games and so on introduced at that level. So it is, yes, it is important for the touch and the feel, but it is also important for us to go with the time. A little baby, a little 1-year-old, is now able to make a call and to decide which icon he wants on the mobile phone. And so that is where we have to start. Now, Dr. Pinnock spoke about the teachers' colleges, which of course, if you have the teachers properly prepared, then the system will realign itself. But I would want to encourage private sector for the work that you have already done in early childhood, for example. If we can use those 2 schools that we have already built and make a concerted effort to start doing the small little things like how you identify a code, how you build a little robot, then I believe we would start creating that culture. The curriculum within the ministry is already retrofitted. Its fundamentals are on STEM. And so that is why we have the primary exit profile that we had such a whopping for in early 2019 and 2018. But the philosophical underpinnings are already there from an educational perspective. And so it is really now for private sector to work with education so we can start seeing the gains from the early childhood level.
Thank you. Good question. Good answer.
Where do we start? Look. So I think the institution of education has the kids pretty well set from kindergarten through about 3rd grade when they're learning to read. To have the most impact, so our focus is from the 4th grade on, when they're starting to read to learn. That's when they can manipulate the information and translate that into practical STEM application. So we think that the 4th grade, to answer your question, Butch, is a really good age to make sure. I'm not saying that's where you start, because we started from K. So K3 education is about STEM, as we've said. But at the 4th grade, if our kids aren't doing STEM, they're going to be playing catch-up. We're not going to advance it.
Thank you. Melanie and then Mr. McKnight.
I have a question. I'm a PEP mom and a CSEC mom right now. And I can see very clearly that in the PEP curriculum that there's a lot of references to this area. So I would obviously commend the government for the movement that they're trying to make towards this goal. In the meantime, I'm going to plug, it is Computer Science Education Week that is celebrated in the US. Next week, we'll be out doing coding sessions for about 400 kids in inner city schools next week. We'd love the Ministry of Education's support on that. But in reference to PEP, there are a lot of sort of materials within that on code.org that are all free that schools can be promoted to use, and there's teachers' assistants in there. But my question really is, when you look at CSEC, when you look at the curriculum, I have a child coming to me to say, "Mommy, what is a floppy disk? And why did you have a CDR and a CDRW? Why were they existing?" And to spend, sort of time sort of studying and trying to remember pieces of technology that no longer exist, that I can't even find in my home to show them. I mean, I think I managed to find a floppy drive in some archive somewhere, not even the drive, just the disk. And same with the CDR and the CDRW. There's stuff in CSEC IT that kids are studying that is completely useless. And I was just wondering when that might be changing.
The ministry will definitely participate in the coding session for our inner city children. Of course, our presenter spoke about the involvement of communities earlier. Now, when I leave here this morning, I'm actually going to Grenada for the CXC Council meeting. And that's exactly what is on my mind, because we in Jamaica, we have developed a curriculum thanks to our teachers' colleges that we think is fit for purpose. We now have to change what is happening within the middle of the system, which is to get our examination bodies to make sure that they change their syllabi so that we can have that full alignment. I want to say, however, that the Jamaican K-13 strategy is one which will allow our young people to leave at grade 13 with an associate degree. And that associate degree does not only come in CAPE, it comes in the technical and vocational programs that we have. It also comes in City and Guilds examinations, which is international and which is already fit for purpose. And so at the end of grade 13, Dr. Pinnock can decide based on those underpinnings that a young person would have developed in terms of attitude, skills, and techniques to determine if he wants these persons to advance in terms of the different areas. So as it stands now, it's about open exit, open entry. The truth is, our young people are going on Google and equipping themselves, and so that is why when they go to school, school is seen boring. And that is why teacher education is so important to get our teachers to operate as facilitators. So we expect that CXC will now do a complete remodeling to the alignment of the 21st century into the next century, sir, that the education system in Jamaica is moving. And as Nicole said earlier, Jamaica is 51% of CXC, so we lead the charge. So whatever we ask to be done, the rest of the Caribbean follows. So my commitment to you, our private sector, is that we are ready. I am acting as PS, but I am Chief Education Officer responsible for retrofitting the system and make it fit for purpose. And we are ready to work with you in whatever way, shape, or form to ensure that we start seeing those goals being realized.
Thank you. I must tell you that I'm also a PEP, just past PEP, past PEP. And I did the exam with my daughter. But using PEP and putting my University of the West Indies Science faculty hat on, I want us to be a little clear. I would use a breakfast analogy. We're going after the fried egg, right? So the fried egg is the white and it has the yellow in the middle. In truth, we're trying to develop critical thinking, we're trying to develop skills in everybody. And that's the whole. And at the same time that we're trying to develop critical thinking in the entire populace, because we want a critical thinking workforce, we want a critical thinking entrepreneur, but we also want a critical thinking populace who can use the STEM that is going to be put out there and appreciate it. So we have to go for the whole. At the same time you're going for the whole, you also want now to pick out the yellow, those who have the science mind and skill. And I use that to say, the initiating point then has to be multiple entry points. There are at least 5 clear entry points. You clearly have to go for the teacher and the teacher, and that's what the Micro Center is going. But it's one entry point, right? You have to go for the student clearly as well, and the schools they attend. If the students get all the best things and go into the schools and can't see the science at work, we're defeating the purpose. You're almost working back ways, right? You clearly have to go for the curriculum. That's where the Ministry of Education, and you're getting there that this is a partnership approach. Partnership. You have to go for the homes and communities. That's the idea I think Marlon is trying to put about innovation centers, right? I don't know my 2 minutes. but and then 5th, you have to go for mainstreaming in government policies, plans, and public education. STEM is not something to impose in. It's something to be mainstreamed throughout. when you ask the question, what's the starting point, really what you're asking is, how do I start filling the gaps in these 5 insertion points? And there are multiple elements that you have to do. At a later point, we can talk about what you is doing and what you is proposing or what the university is. But the entry points are multiple and have to be tackled simultaneously, collaboratively, and at the same time. We can talk about sustainability later in the discussion.
Thank you very much, Michael. That made it very clear. Mr. McKnight, you wanted to ask a question? And then
thank you, Mr. Moderator.
After.
Yes, I support the whole STEM concept. I don't think it's a question of if is when, because if we don't, we will all die before our time. My question is to Dr. McLean, and it concerns implementation. I hear about rolling out STEM across the island, the center, etc., but I'm trying to understand how will it fit in with our current education system. There's a lot of noise already been made by some of the teachers. The powerful JTA, will this compete with what we are doing? And, you know, what are the critical strategies we have to overcome? Because the JT is a powerful group. And we know if they don't support it, we're going to have much more work to implement this thing. So I want to kind of understand, from an implementation standpoint, how do we ensure that all stakeholders, especially the real educators, the teachers, are on board with this?
And it's difficult, but I'm going to challenge you to be concise in responding to that.
So, firstly, the Jamaica Teachers Association is on board. We started from 2013. They have a partnership with Loma Linda University. And for the last 5 to 6 years, we have been partnering in training at least 100 teachers in STEM. The ministry provides the technology, the tablets, and so on. And they actually go overseas, and the professors also come here to complete that. So they are already fully on board, no issues where that is concerned. We have started the introduction of STEM in 8 of our high schools, where we provide resources, train the teachers, change the way they teach, how they implement the curriculum. The truth is, we must implement using a blanket approach. And so the STEM schools that you have heard about, we look forward to further announcement, moving ahead to get those state-of-the-art facilities. Also, as it relates to the involvement of private sector, because you are evolving every day, and how we integrate into the community. We have a national STEM coordinator and an entire team that is responsible for its implementation. So we are ready in education. We just need a lot of help to make it happen.
Can I just share one comment on that? So part of the work that I do in the States is we organize communities around STEM, right? And so it's not, so the way you phrase the question is what will the Ministry of Education do about certain things? The approach that we use a collective impact approach that says all must be counted. So we get together, we identify what the problems are, who are at the table, what we bring to the table, what we're missing. And so it's a we. Of all of us who are organized to address this, including businesses, what do we bring to the table? What are we missing? How do we prop up each other so that in the end, the children and the community will benefit by us working collaboratively? So it's, what do you have? What do you need? How do we get there together? So it's a shift in thinking in waiting for maybe the government or the Ministry of Education to tell us what they're going to do. No, we need to tell them, identify what you want them to do based on your understanding of the problems that we're trying to solve.
Okay. Thank you, Marlon. Mr. Hall, and then...
Morning, everyone. Marvin Hall, Halls of Learning. So building on Marlon's question in terms of what we're missing, my question is related to some specific plans for 2020 in terms of addressing the gross deficiencies we have in reading and comprehension specifically, which is part of is enabling our children to become STEM ready. And if we throw STEM skills and STEM initiatives on top of that weak foundation, we hit a ceiling very quickly. So in terms of reading and comprehension, how are we specifically in 2020 trying to address that huge gap in the primary and secondary educational system?
Okay, so quickly, our literacy rate is at 84%. Our numeracy rate, we made a 7 percentage point jump over 2018 for 2019, which is now at about 73%. So we are edging up incrementally. The first PEP results actually showed mathematics was at 48% and science was at 43%. So we are not proud, but we know the issues in terms of implementation. What is of fundamental importance is that we understand the areas where our children are weak now. And so those are being addressed. We have the collaborative support of our tertiary institutions and our teachers. So we are currently ensuring that we prepare those students. Truth be told, in 2005, based on the data that was presented when our birth rate was 47,000, births was 47,000. In 2013, it was 37,000. So the population is declining. So we no longer have 14% of our primary school children dropping out. We only have 3,500 Jamaicans, which, by the way, can create an impact, that are leaving the secondary level system without any form of qualification. And so we are trying to plug that hole. So we believe that we are on the right path to improving the literacy and the numeracy, and we intend to keep at that. But if India is at 82%, I think you said, for literacy, we are at, well, it's a much smaller country, 84%. I think we are heading in the right direction.
The lady with the microphone.
We did a STEM initiative 2 years ago where we focused on early childhood education. And the big gap that we saw kind of is linked back to what he was saying, because the goal of it was to get them to start asking questions, to investigate. That was what we were trying to achieve. So the two things that we saw was, one, the Early Childhood Commission didn't really take it up. We created a curriculum that could be used. And then the second thing is, many of the children have learning disabilities. So they couldn't grasp. A lot of the time was spent trying to just settle them. And I think if we're thinking about how to solve and get STEM where it needs to be, we have to put in the infrastructure for assessments so that we can actually know what the children's issues are and be able to address them effectively.
That's a very good observation. In fact, 2 years ago, at our special education conference, the conference center, I made an appeal for at least one diagnostic center per parish. Right now we have two. The Michael has one here in Kingston, and there's one in St. Anne. We are saying 15% of our children have special needs, and then other research is saying it's edging closer to 30%. And that may be one of the reasons why our crime issue and antisocial behavior, a lot of it is people crying out for help. And so what part of its STEM initiative, however, is to train all teachers, including our special educators, and to attract more special educators in the system. The other way we have done it is to ensure that all teachers in all colleges in Jamaica have to do at least 6 to 9 credits of special education. At the MICO, it's compulsory that you must do at least 3 courses to identify special need and also to refer them. So that's part of the entire complex system. But the truth is, we need more facilities to identify and to help to solve these issues.
Well, I would like to add how the teachers' training system works in India. The total the children enrollment in the schools is about 30 million per annum, out of which about graduated is only about 7.5 million. That includes 1 million engineering graduates. But we have a surplus teachers in math, physics, chemistry, and biology. So people go for the other courses as well, not for the just engineering or technical courses. After 10th grade, so they have an option to go for technical diploma level courses or industrial training institutes, which offers 2 years course and then immediately get a job. There are private industries offers the stipend to the students who goes for the skill development training or diploma courses. Soon after that, what the Micro University is talking about STEM, exactly like this. So most of the industries in India, they support the diploma level skill development centers, and after 3 years of their education, and take them back into their industries. That is how it's a transfer of knowledge and technology, both from university, colleges to industries. But in terms of the teachers, so after 10th grade, they don't go for the further high schools and universities. So they go for the teacher training courses. That is where the interest is for the teachers. And as I said, the education is compulsory and free at all levels, including university levels, medical and engineering colleges, all completely free. So people have several options to choose different course and different line of their interest. Come back to arts and liberal colleges. They also offer, suppose a student studying BA history will have a subject on Indian culture, Indian history, and mathematics or statistics, as one paper continues. So he continues to be in STEM area. I studied BCom computer science. Those days, so there's the beginning of early 90s. Still, I continue to be part of that computer course. There are courses outside engineering institutes, Bachelor of Computer Applications, Master in Computer Applications. So these also part of the STEM, but it's not what you call evidently seen. So it means that STEM is there in each and every course offered in India. I think that will revolutionize in Jamaica if you start a STEM center and then multiply. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. My name is Aldrin Sweeney. I'm a senior lecturer in STEM education at UWI Mona. I'm delighted to be present at this meeting. The presence of the private sector tells me that Jamaica is serious about this. So it emphasizes to me, I've had some doubts, but this emphasizes to me that Jamaica is serious about this. Right? I've been an academic for 25 years, so I'm not a business person. However, I've noticed Dr. Christian's presentation, Dr. Benjamin's presentation, there's obviously a very strong economic argument being made here. A very strong workforce development argument is being made here. So a question based on the economic argument. We know that we're losing nurses, police officers, and a range of STEM professionals every year. I noticed the Indian High Commissioner mentioned in Kerala, a number of the STEM-educated persons are working in Gulf countries, the UAE, Qatar, Saudi Arabia. As part of this overall discussion, are we also considering managed migration of our STEM professionals, those who we will prepare? I think that's inevitable. We're going to face it. So I'm raising that for some consideration and discussion.
4 years ago, Dr. McLean, we had the Maths and Science Scholarship Program, where it's created a great impact. In fact, if it wasn't for that program, today we would have been in serious trouble. We just graduated the first set of Maths and Science who got scholarship, full scholarship from the government of Jamaica. And the caveat is that they are bonded for 5 years. So they have to stay here for 5 years and deliver for that. Now, in terms of migration, after that, we probably cannot stop them. So we must find a strategy, find a way to keep them here. Now, also, we must also remember that remittances is a large part of our foreign exchange. Right? So we have to find a way to balance that and to ensure that we do. But if we have a STEM for all program, it means that we can end up with surplus like India. Yeah. So therefore, why not just train everybody and ensure that everybody is competent so that every other person you touch can actually deliver and function effectively in this system?
Okay. Good morning, Belinda Williams from Proven Management. Just one quick question. We spoke about the ecosystem and the desired end goal, and Grace, this may be for you. As a potential private sector partner and meaningfully want to contribute to something that has a patron for change, I'm delighted to hear that for the first time, the government and the private sector is on the same path. What I'm concerned about is the fact that we may be at cross purpose, and I just want to ensure that the same direction, because everybody is going to come to the private sector for the same resources. So at what point, what is the next step? Because the Prime Minister articulated a similar sentiment, and I want to understand how it is that he's been, brought into this, and what's going to be the next step coming out of this task force, so that we can really be presented with a fulsome and meaningful blueprint as to this is what is required, both from a governmental perspective as well as a private sector perspective, and this is how we're going to go forward.
Well, just to say, from a government perspective, we will follow the policy directive, which is now being developed. There are structured ways in government, and so we expect that our Prime Minister very shortly will roll out with the Ministry of Education the full plan in terms of the location of the schools, the timeline in completing the building, the selection of the students, and the overall. And of course, what is very important here is the private sector involvement with education, which only Uncle Glenn can answer that question.
We got this private sector together. Thanks for coming. And as I mentioned in my speech this morning, what triggered this is the National STEM Center at MICO. So we start with raising 1.5 million to start that center. That's number one, so that we can get the teachers teaching. And then the task force that we have named, as you can see, we are all busy, serious people. We want, and Butch is coming up to talk about this, because we would want to get this STEM Center, National STEM Center, ready for September 2020. So we really want to make a start immediately. And therefore, as we go along, we'll collaborate with the ministry as to because this is a national project. But we from the private sector, all I want to know is to raise 1.5 million, make the start, and then Michael will take it to the teachers take it to the students, and Marlon's program over the community. So we just, and this came out of the fact that, as I said before, that when Michael, Dr. Benjamin, and Dr. Pinner conceptualized this whole National STEM Center, I decided to run with this. The AFJ is on board. We raised some money at the award this year. I think they're going to raise some more. So we'll make it happen. And Butch is going to come up and tell us a little bit more about that. But it's all of us. And we expect that this task force will stay together and drive the process.
Andrew, I haven't forgotten you, but Dr. Taylor wanted to respond to the question. Managed migration.
Yeah, I did actually want to make a comment that, in truth, what you're asking about is, can we increase capacity so that we can train what we need here and send away? And then you're also asking about sustainability. Can we always have the input of people? And it don't have to be the traditional models. I think we're in discussion with the ministry about an alternative model that sends the brightest science students into the school for a period as their give back. But as long as you continually have the input, then you don't need to worry about the sustainability. They can go on afterwards and become the science and STEM entrepreneurs. It's the sustainability, and I know we'll further that discussion. Can I just pick up something you said, though, from JMB? I think what you are... No. Proven, sorry. I'm sure... how could I? Oh, my. I am so sorry. Maybe I'm channeling both of you, both companies, to... I'm not so far up. What I think I hear you saying is that each of us in here is identifying a little area where we have an interaction with and can see the clear need. The question you're asking is, how do we know where we are plugging? If we go for that, what is the gap we are plugging in those kind of 5 insertion points that I'm saying? You're asking us for what's the overarching STEM approach, which don't rely only on the Ministry of Education, you know, and what is overarching STEM approach that needs to be mainstreamed, you know, which don't rely only with the Ministry of Education. And therefore you will pick up the various points for, but I could be wrong, and that's fine. I just wanted to say that.
Thank you. Andrew, you have the mic?
Yes. I'm Andrew Pierman, Deputy Chairman, NCB Foundation. I'm here representing my chair, Thalia Lynn. And we've long supported STEM, Dr. McLean, Michael. And in this process, I know I have to report to Thalia next week at board meeting. She's going to ask what is the timetable for the money. I think, Glenn, you started to touch on that. She's going to ask what portion of this is the government going to be putting forward. And basically, you have us all here. When do we need to start to drum up to get this $1.5 million ready to get this going? Thank you, but we are on board.
Thank you. Were there any other questions? If not, I'd allow Mr. Hall to do his follow-up if you still want to do your follow-up.
I just want to make an observation. And,
careful about philosophical statements.
Yeah. No, as one who was directly involved in starting CXC in Jamaica, and the question that arose a moment ago that Pascal is still being taught to date, I'm asking what sort of provision is being made for maintenance. I'm in the technology business, and one of my greatest expenses is training. You know, it is extremely dynamic. Yeah, so I'm asking to do that. Two, is in Finland, and I was in Finland a couple of months ago. Teachers' salaries are now competitive with other professionals, and that is very, very important. Yeah. Thirdly, my experience is that nobody buys anything from you unless you can show them a user site. This problem was solved by us by forming partnerships with companies in India. Today we know our investment in Hyderabad, the hospital system that we are implementing at the university, and soon in Bahamas is now a joint venture. And believe it or not, our health insurance claim system is being exported to India. I am going to suggest that you don't let that man too far out of your sight, because that STEM thing should have him as a partner. Yeah? And having said that, I am going to ask you to give thought to this. We talk about logistics centers, and we think of it as a physical center. I believe as Jamaicans we are better salesmen than the Indians, in as much as they might be more advanced in technology. Why don't we consider a logistics center in Jamaica for software? No Jamaican is going to develop a piece of software, export it, collect money, and pay 25% taxes. It's not going to happen. So let us look at a logistics center where it could be as tax-free. It could lead exports in Latin America, for example. That's what we're doing. Very recently, we signed a contract in Kenya for a health insurance thing. But should we be paying 25% tax on the license fee for that software? It won't happen. And maybe we could even get some Indians to form companies in Jamaica. You could get the employment, you could get that reference site, and ultimately you could be exporting as a Jamaican organization into Latin America and elsewhere. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your participation. And panelists, you can stay there if you want, but thank you very much.